People who love monsters usually agree. If there's anything better than one monster, it's multiple monsters. And what's not to love? Monsters come in so many forms with their varying themes and powers and weaknesses. Individually, they are fascinating beings, each monster being its own manifestation of its fears and struggles. When you put them up against each other, their differences and specialties can really shine, especially when they're put in intense, dangerous, and high-stakes situations. You know, like high school. Like a high school for monsters. Like Have you ever thought, what if Barbie was goth? Well, look no further than Monster High, Mattel's Dance in the Darkness, creating a universe that is as baffling as it is amazing. Started in 2010, Monster High is a world that features the teenage children of famous monsters going to high school together. You have such characters as Claudine Wolf, the daughter of the Wolfman, Laguna Blue, the daughter of a sea monster, Cleo Denial, daughter of the Mummy, Draculaura, the daughter of Dracula, and perhaps most important for this show, Frankie Stein, the daughter of Frankenstein. Monster High is primarily a line of fashion dolls, similar to Bratz, My Scene, and of course Barbie. I know I'm dating myself with these particular references, but if you think I am going to willingly learn anything about the lore of Rainbow High, you're wrong. In its original run, Monster High had a 2D cartoon TV show, as well as 15 3D animated films, all about the wild, wacky, and weird world that these teenage monsters occupy, as they learn life lessons, save the world, and ace their Scarenomics class, all while looking frighteningly fashionable. But one spooktacular movie in the collection caught the ever-watching eyes of us here at the Uncanny Productions, and we just had to talk about it. Monster High Freaky Fusion is a bonker film that involves body fusion, time travel, emotionally supporting your own grandfather, and of course the life-restoring power of friendship. There's sort of two plots here, one that's very clearly made to sell dolls, and the other, well, so students at Monster High are presenting their Scaritage projects, detailing their monstrous family histories. Frankie Stein, however, doesn't know anything about her family history. Her dad, Frankenstein, for some reason, doesn't like to talk about or have any photos of Frankie's grandpa, Victor Frankenstein. In order to learn more about him, Frankie and her friends go to the hidden laboratory of inventor Hezekiah Steam, who was Victor's teacher here at Monster High centuries ago. While there, they wind up oopsing into a time machine, which takes them to Monster High's campus back in 1814. Now in the past, Frankie watches a normie or human student named Sparky attempt to instill life on some robo-parents he's made for himself. You see, Sparky's an orphan and has decided that since he doesn't have a family, he's going to make one. Unfortunately, his demonstration goes so terribly and embarrassingly wrong in front of everyone. His teacher, Hezekiah Steam, tries to explain that creating life needs more than just machinery and requires something much deeper and much more complicated. Sparky, however, is too embarrassed by his failure to listen and runs off. Frankie tries to find him and encourage him not to give up. She knows life can be created because, well, she was created. This, while being well-intentioned, proves to be the wrong thing to say, as he becomes obsessed with her and follows her back across school, right through the time machine, landing him in the present day. There's some miscellaneous shenanigans here where in the time travel, some of the ghouls accidentally get fused together and have to figure out how to function with two different monsters piloting their same body by befriending a group of ostracized hybrid monsters, but this has very little to do with the story that I care about. Though it does have some incredible character designs. Nathan Rott, I love you. But we're moving on. Sparky, crash landing in the modern era, begins making a new creation using the fancy technology he finds. He figures his problem was his old equipment, and the machines of the future will surely do a better job at bringing his creation to life. Spoiler alert, it doesn't! The giant creation/robot he makes comes to life, but very quickly begins destroying things and trapping the hybrid monsters inside himself, repeating that he's missing something. Frankie gets understandably pissed, hooks herself up to the robot, and uses her life spark to make it spit out her friends and shut the thing down. She succeeds, but at the cost of her life. Yeah, Frankie fully dies, and with her last breath, she tells Sparky not to give up, that creating life is possible, just like her grandfather, Victor Frankenstein, did. To which Sparky reveals,
"My name is Victor Frankenstein."
Listen, is it the most obvious reveal of all time? Yes. Do I think that it was actually done in kind of a cool way? Also yes. Monster High is allowed to have a little artistic merit, as a treat. Victor immediately begins his effort to bring Frankie back to life, but it's not quite working. Frankie's friends start sending out a message to the entire school asking them to think about Frankie and what she's done for them. This massive outpouring of love and kindness and support manifests into Frankie's life spark, bringing her back to life and making sure that Frankie got a new doll out of this movie after all. Victor Frankenstein hugs his granddaughter, thanks her for everything, goes back to the past, and Frankie is shown the real photo album because apparently her parents knew this was going to happen and had to keep it hidden from her until she met Victor in the past, and the implications here are insane. So I'm not going to think about them because the movie certainly doesn't. With that, music plays, the credits roll, and dolls fly off the shelf. But we're not here for selling dolls. We're here for Frankenstein stories. So, let's take our tenets and see how this one stacks up. I am so pleasantly surprised that despite this being a more recent version of Frankenstein, it's actually animation rather than reanimation. All of the characters are talking about creating life and giving it to something, rather than taking things that are dead and bringing them back to life. Except for Frankie at the end, but that's fine. That's the restorative, life-giving power of friendship. It's different. Is the leaning away from reanimation here done because this is a children's movie and they don't want to frame their protagonists as grave robbers playing God? Entirely probable. Though we do get this line from Sparky.
"You are missing something. You tried to create life using this, but you left out this."
You mean guts and organs and stuff? No, I used plenty of those. Look!
Where'd you get the organs, Sparky? Where'd you get them? Actually, I'm gonna stick on this point a little bit more because it's trash that Sparky's prototypes are robots. Let me see this man do his flesh science. I get that this is a kid's movie, but this is what Frankie is too. And she's the protagonist. Either all of it's weird or none of it's weird, Monster High. Pick a lane. So, a consistent theme of Monster High across its many platforms and iterations is insisting to anyone and everyone that no matter who you are welcomed and you are loved. Freaky flaws and all. Which is a major theme in this movie, although mostly in the plot that we didn't talk about because it's not important. Nathan Rod, I love you. But we see it through Victor in an interesting way too. He's an orphan who's never had a real family. On top of that, he's the only human in a school of monsters who let him know openly that they don't like him. Which is fair. It wasn't that many movies ago that a group of humans tried to execute a Monster High student. Yep, that happened. Victor in this world truly doesn't have anyone. He's alone. He's so desperate for someone that he is going to create life, and he doesn't care what he has to do to make it work. He needs someone. And I find this really fascinating because that's actually quite in line with the monster from the novel asking Victor to make him a bride. He's alone and he just wants someone to love him. Granted, getting heckled during a failed presentation and getting attacked, chased, screamed, and shot at by everyone who sees you isn't quite the same, but, like, the point still stands.
This is a story about family. There are lots of different types of families, and they can sometimes be found in pretty unexpected places.
This is the big one with this movie. Everyone in this film just wants to belong and be accepted. And Victor Frankenstein is no exception. And he is going to keep making horrible robots until he has a family he can belong to. It's in watching Frankie and her friends fix his big mess that he learns that family is more than just the people you were born to. Family is the people who love you and support you and accept you.
How do we shut it down?
Shut it down? You can't! He's my family.
You have a family, Sparky, and they're out there running for their lives from that thing you've created. We're your family. Monster High is your family.
And we're a part of it.
Nathan!
There is a bit of mixed messages here, though, because Victor does still go back in time and make himself the monster and the bride. Like, yes, The people around you can be your family. You don't need a nuclear family unit to complete your life, but also you do need to go back in time and make heterosexual parents, because if you don't, the series doesn't have a protagonist. So like, yes, found family, but also do continue to make yourself a traditional family. Do both. This is the biggest frustration I have with Monster High in general. It sells itself as the alternative style Barbie, essentially, and leans into themes like found family, but in a way that distinctly does not go against societal norms. The narrative likes to skirt around the ideas of marginalized groups, but never in a way that could actually upset anyone. Everyone here is an inoffensive, upstanding heterosexual with nuclear families, hourglass figures, and high-heeled feet, believing sincerely in institutions that care about us and problems that can be solved by the power of friendship, and not demanding societal change. This is almost aggressively ironic, as monsters in their truest classical senses are manifestations of societal perversions, representations of people's fears. Vampires are queer and unholy desires that slowly but completely consume you. Werewolves are the people in your community that you think you can trust until they rip you apart. Frankenstein is the thing that you create with good intentions coming back to destroy you. Monsters show what we're afraid of. It shouldn't be that odd of a leap then to talk about how monsters are queer figures. When society at large will only depict non-traditional lifestyles as monstrous, marginalized communities are going to find more in common with monsters than the normal people. So when you create a society of monsters, inadvertently, you are taking that baggage with you. And then when you have to make those monsters appealing to the wider mass society, you wind up watering them down to make them inoffensive to the market, and they start to lose the things that made them monsters in the first place. It's traditional values wrapped in the language and clothes of the non-traditional. I'm glad the latest iteration of Monster High is embracing more of the queer and non-traditional elements, but it's still Mattel trying to sell gobs of plastic to as many people as they can. Now, yes, this is a show for children, so I shouldn't get too in the weeds here. But tough! This is my show, and I'm the monster expert. You came into my house, Mattel! This is a school of monsters, so no one's particularly upset here about a man making people. Hezekiah Steam only warns Victor about creating life because he's worried Victor is going to blow something up and get hurt, not so much the, hey, maybe playing God isn't a good idea. Probably because, again, if Victor doesn't play God, this franchise loses its main protagonist. There is some classic stuff here with Victor, though. He's so consumed by the idea of creating life to the ironic degree that he is missing what truly makes life. Love, connections, and emotions.
October 5th, 1814. Victor Frankenstein is one of the brightest and most promising students I have ever had the pleasure to educate. That's him! Unfortunately, there's another side to Victor. A dangerous inner personality that recklessly disregards the spectacular mysteries of life in pursuit of his scientific ambitions. I fear this may be young Victor's undoing. Wow.
He's so lost in the science of it all that he can't see the forest for the trees. One thing that I think is particularly cool in the animation is you get to see the transition visually as Victor becomes more and more unhinged, going from mild-mannered science student to peak mad scientist chic. And for the record, internet, if they made a doll out of this man, I need you to help me get one, because I desperately need one. Like, who else can pull off a triangle monocle? Only the greatest mad scientist of all time, that's who. Obviously, since most of our cast here aren't actually human, when I'm talking about humanity, I'm talking about personhood. In this movie, Victor is trying to create life, but is consistently told that life is more than electrified meat. It's more than nuts and bolts. There's a more complicated layer to life than the technical existence. This is where we get to Frankie's life spark. In doing this Scaritage project, she starts to question who she is, and if she's even really alive.
I've been thinking about my grandfather a lot lately. I don't really know about him. Or myself.
What do you mean?
I know I have this, but do I have this? Professor Steam said you needed more than just some spare parts to create a life. Something inside. He called it a spark. So what did Victor Frankenstein discover that gave life to me? If I was built in some laboratory, am I even really alive at all? What if I'm just parts?
That's some heavy stuff. You sure you don't want to go back to small talk about the lava?
It's her spark that makes her sure that she is, and it's that spark that she uses to save her friends. We make a lot of jokes about the power of friendship, but Frankie's spark isn't just that. They never specifically codify what it is, if it's emotions or love or passion or just the pure drive to live. It's sort of all of them all at once.
What's happening? What is that?
I've seen that before. It's her spark.
I don't understand. It's just electricity.
No, it's something else. It's her emotions, her love, her life force. It's her.
Everything my creation isn't. The spark. That's what makes her alive. That's what I've been missing.
I actually really love that. I like that Frankie's power comes from living. It's not uncommon for a Frankenstein creature to have some kind of electricity ability due to the whole lightning thing, and Monster High is not free of sin regarding the liberties that they take with Frankie. But I love that Frankie's life force itself is her power. It is both invoked and restored by her community. We can make fun of the power of friendship all we want, but really, the idea that the people you love in your life and the people who care about you so deeply and so truly that they can make major, life-altering, manifest differences in the world, if you think that's stupid, then I feel sorry for you. It's things like this that actually kind of get to me in this context, because the Frankenstein monster of the original novel wanted nothing more than just one singular person to love him. All he asked was one person to see him and care for him. If he could see this, I feel like he'd be really touched. You know, once we explained high school and movies and selfies to him.
Say, artificially intelligent family member constructed in a lab.
Monster High is definitely a time capsule of a particular era. We're very much in the post-Barbie era of children's media with our spooky punk fashions, where we're wearing pink, but it's in a cool way. What's more, regarding eras, technically we do go back in time in this film, although I have a feeling Monster High Freaky Fusion was not going for historical accuracy with this portrayal of 1814.
Why is everybody staring at us? It's 1814. They've never seen fashion styles like ours before.
It's a Ghostier original, and it's magnificent. Move along.
But this is what I was talking about when I first introduced this tenet, and why I wanted to include it in my list in the first place. When we really get into the proper Frankenstein story, it always goes back to the past. Here we are quite literally going back in time to engage with it. And there's something that gets to the philosophical literary part of my brain about this. In engaging with the story, you change the story, and the story in turn changes you. And yet, neither changed, really. At the end, you're both still the same, but also so completely changed. Is this more analysis than a children's movie deserves? Yeah, probably. But again, it's my show, so I'll deeply analyze all the children's media I want, and you can't stop me! Frankie and Victor are the major players here, and both have agency throughout the whole story. What's really cool is that the two of them are struggling to understand themselves and their place in this world, with story arcs that meet in the middle. And I really just love that. For the first two generations of Monster High, Frankie was sort of the de facto protagonist, which isn't so much the case in the current run, and Victor hasn't been seen in this franchise since this film, which is personally kind of a bummer. We also never see Frankenstein in this franchise, which is a big bummer. I know the whole deal is that it's about the kids, but we get to see Dracula in Gen 2 and 3. Where's Old Man Bolts? Where's Grandpa Victor? I just think it would be cool. I feel like I'm not being unreasonable. So, this is a movie for children. Remember that. This movie was made to sell dolls, and you can really tell. I don't hate the hybrid monster storyline, but it definitely feels like it's combating the Frankenstein storyline for relevance. It sort of feels like two different scripts that got forcibly merged, which I suppose is appropriate. I'll say this. This movie is very fun and goofy, and I loved watching it. Don't go into it expecting next-level genius, but do enjoy the moments of genuine humor or sincerity. This might not be the greatest film ever made, but it's definitely one I don't regret watching. As a Frankenstein story, this movie surprised me. It was surprisingly faithful to the heart of Frankenstein, and the changes that it made were fascinating and actually added really interesting elements to the story. Is it perfect? No. I have my complaints here and there, but I still really enjoyed it. So, if you ever wanted an excuse to watch an animated children's film from 2014, consider this your sign. Thank you for watching. And remember, when things are falling apart, you can always stitch them back together. Till next time.
Well, I get some healing powers from my unicorn side, but my zombie side makes me... what would I call it? Oh, I'm clumsy.
Nathan Rott, I love you.